Hello, and welcome back to the Juniper JNCIA Junos video series. My name is Chris Frisch. This is section 3 of the video series, and in this section we are going to cover some basics of the Junos command line and the JWeb GUI. I know after all of the network fundamental stuff, you're probably ready to dive into some real Junos-specific information. So let's do it. The topics we are going to cover in this video are describing the functions of the CLI modes, options for getting help and filtering output, options for moving around the CLI, Junos batch configuration models, modifying and managing the configuration files, and we're going to take a look at the JWeb GUI. At the end of this video, I will give you a lab assignment. So let's go ahead and log into our test equipment here. There we go. Alright, so when you first access a Junos device, when you first log in, you're going to be at the Unix shell prompt. Okay, this is basically the Unix command line before you actually get into the Junos software. There's a couple commands that you can put in here, such as this. And this is basically going to give you an overview of some of the Unix processes and usage, kind of a snapshot view of everything that's going on in the Unix kernel. Something else you can do, this command will just give you a few details on the host name and some details on the OS there. Let's see, another one. And this command will actually list some kernel errors. This one could possibly be slightly useful at some point if you're trying to determine whether there are kernel errors going on with your device, to possibly identify a device that needs to be replaced. There's really not a whole lot to do in the Unix shell prompt. There's nothing configuration related here, so we don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on that. There's not really going to be anything that you're going to need to do here. So let's go on into the operational mode with the command CLI. This is actually going to get us into the Junos software. The operational mode is primarily for monitoring and troubleshooting. Here you have access to a lot of show commands that give you status, monitoring, and troubleshooting data. Notice that the operational mode prompt is denoted with the greater than sign. So let's take a look at a few of these commands. So the command you're probably going to use most in operational mode is the show command. And if we use the question mark here, this will show us everything that we can show with the show command in the operational mode. As you see here, there's quite a bit of options. You just hit the space bar to keep scrolling through here. So let's try the command show chassis alarms. Okay, so it's telling us that there's no alarms currently active. We haven't configured any alarms. But this would be a command that you could use that would show information on any alarms that have gone off. Alright, let's go ahead and move into configuration mode with the command configure. You can also use the command edit. It will basically do the same thing. So if we exit back to operational mode and we type in edit, it's going to take us back into configuration mode. The terms are kind of interchangeable: edit mode, configuration mode, using the command edit or using the command configuration. It's the exact same thing. Notice that the configuration mode is denoted with the pound sign at the end of the prompt. In Junos, the device configuration is stored in a hierarchy of statements. So when you enter configuration mode, you are editing this configuration. So the types of commands you are entering here are primarily for configuring Junos software, including interfaces, routing, user access, security, system, and hardware properties. The main types of commands you will be using in this mode are set commands, delete commands, and a lot of show commands. And of course the commit commands to check and save your configuration. So let's take a look at a few of these commands. So let's look at the set command. If we take the set command, and you can really do this with any other command, just take a statement like set and hit the question mark. And immediately it will start spitting out options for other commands or identifiers that you can use after the set command. Basically, all of your configuration commands that you use in configuration mode are going to start with the command set. So as you can see, we have options for configuring access, there's chassis, event options, firewall, groups, interfaces. And if you just hit the space bar, that will scroll down to the rest of them. So if we say set system, we get all of the system options that we can configure here, such as domain name, host name, Ethernet options, login, ports, processes, quite a few under that one. Say we want to do interfaces, set interfaces. And here's our options for interfaces. Right now, the only interface that I have an IP address on is GE000, so that's really the only one that's going to show up there. If you have other interfaces configured, they will show up there, but they usually don't show up as an option until you actually configure them. So just know that if they aren't there, it doesn't mean that for some reason they're not working. They just don't show up until you have put a configuration on them. Something else you can do is you can use the edit command if you want to actually go into a section of the hierarchy to edit commands within it. For instance, system. If we want to actually go into the system hierarchy and set commands within it, we can type in edit system. And if you know in the brackets there it says edit system, that means that we are currently in the system level of the hierarchy. If we hit the question mark, you see that we get an output of all the options that we can use here under the system. Alright, so let's look at some show commands. So show commands are basically exactly what it sounds like. You're using show commands to find out information about what is configured. So let's hit a question mark here and look at all of our options. There's quite a few different options here, and basically what the show commands are going to do in configuration mode is they're going to show you parts of the configuration. Whereas using the show command in operational mode is going to give you options more related to monitoring and access and things going on in the system. Now we can do show system, and this will show us the hierarchical view of the configuration for system. Whoops, we're already in system. Now if we use the show system command, this will give us the hierarchy view of everything configured for the system. As you see here, we have host name, which is router. We have root authentication, services that are configured. We have HTTP configured on interface G000, which is going to be the web interface, the web management interface, JWeb. We have syslog information. If we hit space, we get the rest of it. Now, this hierarchy view can sometimes be a little confusing. And if you're looking for configuration-specific information, like a certain configuration command that was entered, there's another way that you can do this. And this is really probably something that you're going to use more often than just the simple show system command. And what we're going to do is we're going to say show system, and then we're going to put a bar, and we're going to parse the output. And what we want to do is we want to display set commands. So we want to display all of the commands that start with set that have been entered on this device. And we hit enter, and what we get is a list of all the set commands under the system hierarchy. So to get the configuration that we have under system, these are the commands that have been entered to achieve that configuration. This can be very handy when you are trying to remove certain configuration commands, or if you even just want to copy a part of a configuration from one device so that you can copy the set command straight into the command line of another device. So another way you can do this is show interfaces. We use the bar, display set. This will show us all the commands that have been entered for interfaces under the interface hierarchy. So we have the GE00 interface, or GE000, and we see that an address has been configured on this interface. We also have the loopback, and that's there by default. Now, something else that I need to show you is that if you go back to operational mode here, just type in exit, something that can be very handy if you are duplicating a configuration from one device to another. Say you're rolling out multiple firewalls and there's only slight configuration changes between these devices. You can build one configuration, you can load it onto this device, and then you can come into operational mode and type in the command show config. We'll use the bar and display set. What this is going to do, as opposed to the other command in configuration mode, this is going to display every set command that has been entered on the device to achieve the current configuration. When you enter the command in configuration mode, it's showing hierarchy level specific configuration sets, like either interfaces or system or routing options, whatever. But when you do this command, we get all of the configuration commands that have been entered on this device to achieve the current configuration. So what you can do is you can copy all of that out into a notepad, and you can change a couple addresses or change a couple policies, and then copy that configuration up into another device, and you don't have to do it all by hand. So the Junos exam objectives state that you should learn about the Junos batch configuration model. I've never really needed to use this because I'm usually the only person in a device making changes. But Juniper wants you to learn about it, so I'm going to teach you. There may be 1 or 2 questions on the exam about this also. So the Junos batch configuration or commit feature basically aggregates or merges multiple configuration edits from multiple CLI sessions or multiple users and adds them into one batch commit queue. The batch commit server runs on the device and queues up all the commit operations from the different users and sessions and puts them together for a single configuration commit. Now, my lab router does not actually have this feature, so I'm going to give you an on-screen example here. What's going to happen in this case is that once 4 commit operations are queued and aggregated, a single batch commit operation will initiate. If there is an error in one of those commits in the batch, the whole batch will be aborted and discarded. And each individual commit operation will be initiated, and it will throw an error back on the one that failed. Okay, so the first command here configures the number of commit transactions to aggregate or merge in a single commit operation, which is set to 4. The next command limits the number of commit jobs that are added to the queue. The next one configures the time in seconds to wait before starting the next batch operation, which is set to 5 seconds. The next command sets the number of days to keep error logs, and the last 2 commands set a file name for logging and the batch commit events. The trace options are set to flag all. So that's it. Not too much to it. Like I said before, I haven't used this much, but you might want to use it in a larger organization or a project where multiple engineers are working on the same device at the same time. And not every device has this feature. Usually, if you're configuring a device, you should be the only one making configuration changes. At least that's the way it is most of the time. Now, another way you could load a configuration from the command line with the copy and paste is with the hierarchy config. You can use the command load merge terminal. So let's give that a try here. Load merge terminal. Alright, so when you do this, it's going to show the type D at the end of the new line to end your input. Okay, so what you do here is you paste in your config. Once you paste in your hierarchy config, this is the config with all of the curly brackets in it, the one that looks more like the hierarchy structure, not just all the sed commands. When you paste that config in, you'll see it all go in, and what you do is you press enter. and then you press Control D, and that will get you back out of this mode. So we'll do that now. Alright, so we got out of that. I didn't paste anything in here, I just wanted to show you what the command looked like. But if you don't realize that you need to hit Enter and Control D, it's not going to actually load your config, so make sure that you do that. Depending on what kind of configuration you have built or saved, you can load a configuration this way by pasting in set commands also, as we talked about earlier. That's it for part 1 of section 3. Go ahead and move on to part 2 of section 3, where we go into the JWeb interface. Thanks for watching.